today, welcome to Manager Mojo, and it's my privilege today to have a little discussion with a friend of mine named Ed Reiter. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation because I promise you we're going to learn a lot of great things today. And I know it will be valuable to you. So, Ed, welcome to Manager Mojo.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. You know, it's a real privilege for me because I admire you so much and your writings and your work and what you've been able to accomplish throughout your life and become one of the best in the country, really. So I'm excited to talking about what maybe I believe in.
Thank you, Ed. Very kind, and I really, we're going to have a good time today.
Absolutely, I am anyway.
So we both are. So just for our listeners, I want to give them a little bit of background about who Ed Reiter is. For those of you today, you're looking and hearing a distinguished, professional that has really so many accomplishments on his resume that I really can't even begin to list them all. But Ed spent his career in the banking industry, and as a part of the banking industry, he rose all the way from teller to CEO. And when he was CEO of the bank, whenever he retired, this bank had grown to $17 billion in size. That's a B with a billion, guys, $17 billion. That started out with only $8 million in revenue and size and 15 employees. And so Ed became CEO and chairman of Sky Financial Services, retired there, $17 billion over 6,000 employees, and sold for $3.8 billion as a part of him leaving there. In addition to serving most of his career in banking, Ed's been recognized by distinguished institutions all over our country, and it's just really an honor for me to be here. But let me just give you a few of the things that Ed's been honored with. He's received over 40 different awards. He's been elected to 6 different halls of fame. He holds 2 honorary doctorates and numerous community, university, and national recognitions. One of the ones that I love the most, though, Ed, is that you were one of the first 4 inductees at Bowling Green State University's highest award, which is the Academy of Distinguished Alumni. So that's congratulations on that.
It's just that was really neat.
Just a tremendous thing, and Cindy and I had the pleasure of attending that. And
you came. I mean, we didn't expect you to be there. It was one of the neatest things that's ever happened to Linda and I. So it was a really great night.
Well, we enjoyed it tremendously, and in addition to Ed's accomplishments there, even in the banking industry, he's been awarded a Financial World's Bronze Award for the CEO of the country, and has served at the New Hope Christian Community Foundation, received awards for integrity and honesty. And I know, Ed, and I know it's not all about business with you, and we're going to have a little discussion about all of those things
looking
today.
Forward to it.
So let's kind of dive right in, because I think one of the things that I like for people to do in Manager Mojo is to understand how they can start in a career and then where it goes. And I think when I list all of the tremendous accomplishments that you have on your resume, I believe there's a tendency for people to listen to that and to say, well, okay, that's easy for Ed to have done all of those things because he was probably born with a silver spoon in his mouth. So if you don't mind, I'd like for you to kind of give us a little background of really your background and how you started.
I was not born with a silver spoon. I had wonderful, loving parents. My mother was a volunteer in East Toledo at a neighborhood house. And so in the early years, I got to know a lot of different people from a lot of different areas. My dad was a glass worker for LeBion's Ford in Toledo, then became a union representative, was a vice president for many years, but they were both extremely kind to other people. And they didn't have a lot, but they had a lot of love and a lot of giving. And we moved to Rossford, Ohio, and during that period of time, in my high school class, I got a job in my junior year at a gas station. And I worked there for my junior and senior year, and after high school, I decided I wasn't going to school. I was going to continue in the gas station because I liked the people, I liked what I was doing. Well, I worked there for 1 full year, and then I said, well, maybe I better start thinking about doing something different, and I liked one of the business classes I took in high school. And so I started commuting back and forth 25 miles each way to Bowling Green State University until I got my bachelor's degree.
So,
and something more and more important, that's where I met my wife, Linda.
Oh, cool.
And we've been married now. It'll be 52 years in June.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And all started back pumping gas.
That's exactly right. And 7 years I was in that gas station.
That's absolutely awesome. Yeah. So you go to Bowling Green State University, and when you graduated, you didn't actually jump off into the banking industry.
Oh no,
at that point.
banking.
What did you do?
Didn't even think about banking. Actually, I didn't even know what banking was, to be honest with you. No, I went right in the United States Army. I went through ROTC because I could help pay my tuition.
Right.
And so Linda and I left, and we went to Indianapolis for about 6-8 weeks, and then we wound up in Boise, Idaho for almost 2 years, and where we had our first child, Mark, and was great. I mean, as a young lieutenant, I had a lot of opportunity to do things, and then we came back, and I was a school teacher then. I got a job at Northwood High School and then Pennant County Vocational School, and that's where I literally found out about banking from somebody else.
Isn't that cool? So here you are, a teacher. You're spending a couple of years teaching, and then you decide to go to work for the bank.
Well, actually, was asked.
Because you were immediately hired as CEO at the bank, right?
Oh, no. No, actually, they were building a branch, starting to build a branch in my hometown of Rossford, Ohio, and where Linda and I were living with our 2 children now. And what happened is they wanted to find a local young fella, and they wanted to train him. So I was hired as a teller.
Cool.
And it was great. And I actually worked a long time, part-time, while I was still teaching, and then full-time as soon as the school year ended.
So you continued to build your skills. You learned more about the banking industry. You worked on your degree, and so you're building your career one step at a time, just like anybody else.
Oh yeah, not even thinking seriously what that career was going to be. I thought it was something completely different. I loved teaching. I was going to be a teacher my whole life.
Well, I'm interested in hearing about that because I kind of believe that you probably have been a teacher.
Well, I think
and you
that's
may have had a
true.
lot of different titles.
If I had a chance to teach, to be on a stage, to give a talk, or whatever it might be, I enjoy this. It's kind of like being, and hopefully that somebody gets something valuable out of this.
Awesome. So you're growing your career. You're in banking, and at some point you were designated to be a manager. Tell me about your first experience as a manager.
Well, my first experience was really interesting. I was training to be a manager at the Rossford Bank. And what happened is that I was the teller, and because the bank was so small, it was only one building, one office.
Right.
I mean, you did everything. You did accounting, you did sales, you did open accounts, you did everything, which was great. You did the proof work. Well, what happened, the manager that was started off at the Rossford office was called back to Bowling Green. And I talked to the president of the bank, and I said, I can do that job. So he believed me.
Darn if he didn't believe you.
Well, he did believe me, so which is great. So they called me the manager then. They called me the manager, but I was still learning on the job. And but it was great. So I had an opportunity that existed early in the game that worked out quite well for me.
Well, when you were manager at that time, you're kind of learning as you go. Was there a lot of formal training given to you at that point in management, or was it, okay, Ed, just figure this out as you go?
Well, the formal training came along, but not completely at that time.
But not immediately?
No, but since I was a teacher, we wanted to teach our new employees the principle of bank operations, which is a textbook put out by the American Banking Association. And so they asked me to teach the class.
Cool.
So not only did I learn while I was teaching, I was also enjoying that aspect of getting a relationship with the young people that were coming into the company. So,
well, I want to remind you were a young person too.
Oh
then.
yeah, I was. Yeah, I was
isn't it interesting that when we're in management, all of a sudden we feel like we're a lot older because we got all this responsibility now on our shoulders.
And then later on, I wound up teaching at the Ohio Banking School, which was at the Ohio University in the summer. So I continued teaching all the time, and that's where I learned a lot of formal training. Plus the fact I went to 5 different universities for banking classes.
Cool.
And it was and went from Ohio State, Kent State, went to Ohio University for a class, went to Madison, Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin, and then finally to Harvard. And
so you're investing in yourself, and you're investing in your knowledge, and you're learning how to deal with all these different issues.
The bank was paying for every one of these,
and that's a good thing.
So they believed strongly in education. So I was fortunate, being an educator, to be in a company that believed in education.
Awesome.
And that followed in my whole career, and I believe that happened.
Well, I still encourage companies every time I talk to them that the real secret ingredient, in my opinion, in building great companies are those that teach and train. And those that don't, they struggle. But, you know, we've got listeners that really they've never had any training. So here you were, you've got people reporting to you now. Was it always easy, or did you struggle sometimes trying to learn how to deal with people that maybe thought differently than you?
Well, you know, it was never really difficult to deal with people, because I had a certain belief in a caring, a deep caring about people.
Tell me about that, because I think it's important for people to understand.
Yeah, what I believe that I was given in my life was a deep caring for people that I learned from my mom and dad. And then when I married Linda, she kind of polished it down. I mean, she changed my language a lot. She changed my attitude. She taught me how to be in a social setting. She taught me a lot of things that you never can imagine what she taught me from that standpoint. And then my mom and dad, unfortunately I lost my dad early in time, but my mom was still there. So that caring aspect was the most important thing of the whole item that I went through.
Let's dive into that for just a minute.
Okay.
So when you talk about a caring aspect for people, and in particular for those people that were working with you or on your team, what did that mean to you? What did it mean in terms of the way you treated them every day, the way that you worked with them? You know, give us a sense of, you know, how that really came out at work.
Yeah, well, it came out because you could watch these people as they cared about other people. Their whole idea was to solve their customer's problem. Mm-hmm. That's what you do. I mean, if you can do that, they don't care if you're 18 or 80.
Absolutely.
They really want that to be solved, their problem. But the caring aspect, to what I liked more about it, was the fact I could watch people grow.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter where they came from, what they had in their background, what color they were, whether they were big or tall or short, or didn't matter. What mattered is how they had, what they felt inside. And if I could give any lesson that I've learned, probably the most important one is that too many times in our country we have a problem of judging people based on one thing: tall, short, fat, skinny, black, white, etc. A college degree, a non-college degree. And the key is that if you don't do that and only believe on them what they have inside of them, and then if they've got that, there isn't anything you can't teach them. You can't help them with, you can help them with anything. Yeah. But that caring thing is so important, and a lot of people don't understand that.
Well, it's more valuing other people. You got to value the other person as much as you value yourself.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Steve, I see too many people. I have seen too many people that their lives they were afraid that if somebody got good, that they would knock them off the ladder and go above them. And what they didn't realize is the more the people were good around you, the higher up you went on the ladder.
Isn't it amazing when you become a team and you begin to help people grow, and what happens is you as the leader begin to grow, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, it's great. I mean, if you don't care, if you don't think about that. I know in my job, I never thought about promoting myself or doing anything like that. I never asked for a raise, ever. But you know what? I kept going up that ladder, and I always wondered, this is interesting.
It's like, how's this happening?
That's exactly.
But isn't it interesting when your heart's in the right place and you're actually focused on them instead of you?
Oh,
they lift you up.
Oh,
correct?
That's it. Yeah, it's about your. Oh, Steve, you got it. I know you got it. It's about them. It's not about you.
Right. It's always about them.
Yeah. You want to be first. You got to be last. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can remember like that.
Well, so you began to really put these practices into play every day in your work, and you began to live it. And of course, you moved up the ladder. And as you got more responsibility, now what you're doing is that you're not working as much with the frontline people. Now you're developing leaders. You got leaders of people. So you're the leader of leaders at this point. Mm-hmm. And tell me and share with our listeners, what were you looking for when you were trying to identify those future leaders that you were going to elevate in the organization and promote? What were a few things that you really paid attention to and that meant the most to you?
I was looking for what they were as individuals. I was looking for their integrity, their honesty, their openness, their willingness to do things, to accept anybody. The kind of person that I watched grow were people that most companies wouldn't even think they should be hired, because they didn't look at the right things. They didn't look at their attitudes. They didn't look at what they believed in. They didn't look at how they cared. All those kind of things. They worried about, did you have a master's degree? Did you such and such? Did you have this experience? All that kind of stuff. No.
Now, we've got to talk about this for a little bit, because I think it's a big missing lesson today. And I want to dive into it just a little bit deeper here.
Good.
Because you're looking for these people to identify, and I got to tell you, there wasn't one thing that you mentioned that had anything to do with how much of an expert they were in banking.
That's right.
You were looking for those intangible qualities that said, okay, I'm looking for people that care about people. I'm looking for how they deal with other people. It's kind of a given, isn't it, that they're going to be an expert in the banking business. They're going to learn banking, right?
It's because it is a people business. It's again, solving their problems. It's doing something. And being a teacher, if I had the right person, I could teach them anything. I could send them to the right schools. They needed a degree, I could get them a degree. They needed a master's degree, I could do that. They want to become a CPA and their accountant, I can do that. I can do all those things. As long as we didn't train them to be a nurse and they know they were going to leave the bank. But we could, so we started our own school. And we had one of the best schools you could ever imagine. And we made awards for people, not only including our employees, but our boards and everything else.
That's awesome.
And so we had a constant training program.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
It's just wonderful.
And it worked out. I mean, it worked out dramatically.
Yeah. The numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah.
That the testimony of what's happened over that lifetime has already been.
When I look back at it, I said, oh, that's impossible. You talk to some people, and I know I don't really brag about that stuff, but when you think about the numbers and from the growth, from 15 people to over 6,000.
That's pretty good.
And in the same office, in the same town, we were the largest bank in the United States in the smallest city.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Well, let's change just a little bit, because I want to teach people a little bit today.
Good.
And I know that there were times when you had managers or leaders that they were struggling. They didn't do well. Maybe even they failed. Can you give us an example of what you saw that was maybe a common cause of failure?
Well, number one, there was there's a transition that people make in their lives. I mean, I had gone through it, and I had learned from it. You know, your life changes when you get married. Your life changes when you have children. Your life changes when you have a career. And so you watch out, and if you look at these particular periods, you'll notice the times in people's life when they're going through some sort of problem. Something's going on. And so you look at that and you try to figure it out and work it out with that individual and help them get through that particular period of time. You know, this last year we had a bad winter in the United States here. And so I know, and I knew, and I learned that when you're constantly have bad, that you're looking at something's bothering you, and you don't know what's bothering you, but what it is, it's just, I mean, you're bored and everything else. So that's when you have to pump these people back up, and it's true with the 7-year itch with divorce and things like that.
So let's go into that a little bit more. So. The guys that were failing, the people that were struggling, were those that were kind of maybe blind to what was going on with people on their team?
They were blind about what was going on with them.
Okay.
Because
started with them first.
They were going through a period of their life that was predictable.
Right.
And you could see it happen. And when you could see that, you could help them and guide them and give them either the proper training or talk to them. You talk to them like like a Dutch uncle, not necessarily as a boss, but as a person that's interested in them. And that's when you really get people excited, when they know that they love you.
Yeah, exactly. Because I talk quite a bit. I try to encourage people that just because you're the boss doesn't mean that you own them.
Oh, no, the boss.
And that attitude can be in trouble.
You're right, Steve. I mean, I know, and you've talked about that in your writings and so on. And the key is, as you go higher in the company, it's not that you're a better person, but you have more responsibility. And with more responsibility, you can do more for the people below you. And I don't like that term, below you. You can do more for the people that work with you.
Right.
And so consequently, there has to be that hierarchy. At the same time, it's not that important from how you live.
Right.
So.
Well, you mentioned as a part of that, you started to talk about motivation. And motivation is one of my favorite topics, and it's one that I totally enjoy sharing with people. But tell me, what do you believe do you believe that's like one of the top priorities for a manager or leader, or just give me your take on it?
Well, the motivation, without question, is one of the top things, because people get down. You know, they got problems. They got problems at home. They got problems at work. They got problems with their family. They got, people have a lot of outside things hitting them all the time. And
so you mean work is not everything in their life?
No. So what you do in motivation is you take away the worry. For instance, we had in our company with all those, we had a no layoff policy. Why would we do that? Because if you start to lay off people, other people wonder if they're going to get laid off. Well, the key is if you work through that and your board agrees with it, then what you're saying to those people, you don't have to worry about paying your mortgage. You don't have to worry about paying your car payment. You don't have to worry about moving out of a community that you want your kids to go to school in. You don't have to worry about, and so the more worry we could take out of the living aspect, allow them to become more positive and glowing about their work where they were at, because they really enjoyed that and they didn't have to worry about it.
How cool. That's very cool.
And then a lot of companies would never do that. I don't know many other companies that ever do that.
No, they don't.
Because it's just, we took away the worry of somebody.
What a great philosophy.
And then we tried to give them ownership at the same time.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this statistic, but I follow the Gallup organization's research every year. And their latest research showed that in the world, employees are at a level of disengagement in their companies and in their jobs that has been unprecedented. The last study showed that 87% of workers around the world are actually disengaged. They're just showing up to get a check.
Oh, that's terrible. Isn't that a terrible
I
feeling?
mean, in the United States alone, 80%. And I happen to believe that that's a demonstration of a vacuum of leadership that exists in the company. Do you agree? And what do you think?
I'm 100% agreeing with that. Because I could see this with management all over the place. They think that they're in a hierarchy or something, and so what can these people do for me, not what I can do for them. And when you take that attitude, what can I do for them, then you enhance their lives. And when you enhance their lives, they're happy.
That's awesome.
Not always, maybe it doesn't always work, but it works most of the time. And there's some people that just are not going to give that opportunity. Well, I can tell you how, one thing that we used to do, I used to interview every employee, not once they're hired, and I'd get 20 of them at a time, and I'd go sit there for a couple hours and talk to them. And the hardest thing was when they found out I was president or CEO or chairman or whatever my title was. They already had a preconceived idea what that was.
They freeze up.
Well, plus they got all these ideas from their family. All these people do is walk over you. They just use you, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And after 2 hours, it's amazing when you start talking about them and what you can do for them. That you can just see it lift off their problem. You're no longer a thing. You're a person that's chairman.
Right.
You're a person that's president. You're a person that wants to help them, that wants to care about them. But you're also a person that's not going to take any pull off of them.
Right.
And that has to be there too.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's talk about that because I think it's a good transition to some of the tougher issues that managers have, and that is accountability. People have to be accountable for their work.
Absolutely.
So how did you encourage leaders to really hold people accountable, but at the same time value them as a person?
Well, we had a strong management by objectives program. I mean, we had simple goals that had to be met, and they had to be measurable. So if you put on tires on a car and you say you got to do 100 a day, you do 80, you're not meeting your goal.
Right.
Well, there's got to be reasons for that, not just because you're not fast enough. Maybe there's different ways of doing it.
So did that mean you'd wait for a whole year to tell somebody that they weren't meeting their objective?
No.
But isn't that what annual reviews are for?
No, well, that's what annual reviews are for. But the key is you have to have the right accounting. You have to have the right, so that you can, if you have come from January to December, if you don't know at the end of January where you're messing up,
there you go.
You've already lost 1 month.
There you go.
So you've got to be with those people all the time, and sharing the goals and sharing the objectives and all those.
You got to communicate it every day.
Absolutely, you've got to talk to them all. You don't have to talk to them formally. You can talk to them, just walk by. Hey, we didn't meet such and such. What do you think we can do?
Right.
And then you have to ask them why we didn't meet it and what we can do to meet it.
So you're going to get them involved in the solution, not just say,
absolutely.
"Hey, here's the problem. I'm throwing it on your lap."
There's a lot of people that believe the best management is just telling people what to do.
Yep. I was one of those early in my career.
Okay, well, it does work sometimes, but not all the time.
It doesn't work long.
And the key is that it's harder to ask somebody, because the more you ask, the more ideas you get, and somewhere you got to either implement some of those, and you got to implement ideas that don't necessarily you think don't work.
Right.
But you have to let, if that's the case, you have to let that fail so they can get the idea.
So that daily encouragement's a great, great thing for managers.
And it starts in the morning. So many people's bosses come in, you don't know what they're going to be like. Are they going to be happy? Are they going to be sad? Are they going to be mean? Are they going to be non-committal, non-talkative? You got to come in to work every day the same way.
Yep.
And so that people don't have to guess what you're like. You can't be this way and then turn around and be something else.
I like to tell managers that, look, you don't have the privilege of coming in and throwing all of your problems on everybody else.
No, we've got those. We've got those things.
You got to work with solving the problems that your employees have, not worry about yours.
Exactly.
Your job's to keep them up.
Steve, I used to laugh. My office was 1 mile from our home, and when we had one red light, and when it was red, I was upset. No, I wasn't. I just used to tell people that. And then I think about people that have to drive 20 miles to work, have to get their kids to school, have to do, get home,
right.
make dinner for their spouse or whatever it is, And I think these are tough. It's like I thought was really important that a woman could get her hair done.
Yeah.
Because that was a big deal to them. Wasn't a big deal to me. I mean, you can see it wasn't a big deal to me.
I got the same problem, Ed, so it's okay.
But the key was that it's a big deal for them.
Exactly.
And so you allow time for do certain things.
Yeah.
Let things go on that are part of life.
Well, holding people accountable and really making sure they understand goals is a great thing for any leader to do. One of the things that I've noted, and just wanted to take your opinion on this, is that one of the biggest skills that you have as you go into management, even at your entry-level management positions, and especially as you move up in the organization like you did to become CEO of the organization, you have to learn how to delegate. And when you delegated things, kind of share with us some of your secrets about, how did you feel about delegation and how did you go about teaching it?
Well, delegation to me is another one of the most important things you can do. The stickler behind delegation that most people have, it just to drive me crazy. Well, if I delegate my job to somebody else, then they're going to get better at it than I am, and they're going to, I'm going to lose out. Not realizing, again, we talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's a fear that a lot of people have in management.
Fear. But delegation is absolutely, positively, it's so important to be able to teach somebody a new opportunity. And what you have to look at is when you delegate, then people grow. And when they grow, they probably earn more, they have more respect, they have more opportunity, they have more things that can happen to them. And so if you get excited about those people achieving something that they wouldn't have achieved at all if you held them back. And I still see this in companies that I was on boards where they wouldn't delegate.
Right.
And pretty soon they would they'd actually take work away from people.
And they burn out, don't they?
It's
and
crazy.
the organization
So why
fails.
work?
Yeah.
What are you accomplishing? So pretty soon what's more important? It's not your job.
Exactly.
And delegation is something you should be never afraid of. If there's any reason we grew like we did, it was because of delegation and things like that became attractive to other banks when we merged with them.
One of the things that I've kind of noted with delegation is that I think that it's a problem. I'd like your take on this. I've observed that managers really confuse what delegation is. And what they'll do is they'll delegate a task. They'll say, okay, this needs to be done, go do it. The problem that I see is that they'll delegate a task, but they don't delegate the authority to get the task done.
You just took it right out of my mind.
So talk to me about
when you have to delegate the authority, like you just said, but you also have to delegate the consequence.
There you go.
So you have to be there. But if they're having a problem, you've got to help them. You've got to recognize.
You can't just say, "Hey, do it," and be done with it.
Oh no, you got to.
Isn't that what delegation is?
You've got to teach. You've got to help them learn. You've got to help give them the tools.
But I thought I told you to go do it, and now you need me to be involved in it.
That's nice, but most people just can't do that because.
And why not?
If you're like that as a manager, I'll tell you what, those people are afraid of you.
There you go.
And when they're afraid of you, they're going to give you that. What do they call that? The old type of where they keep you in the dark.
Oh yeah,
they feed you something.
Yeah, they feed you. You're like a mushroom.
That's
they don't.
Mushroom technique.
You don't know anything that's going on.
Yeah, and so you lose them. They're being afraid to tell you that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And what you want to know is when something's wrong, so that you can make it right.
Right.
And then watch those people grow. Oh my gosh, how neat! And see, that's the problem with leadership. That's why most leaders see things that are going wrong, and they know what to do, but they don't do it. And that's always been the problem with telling people, that they need to do something. Because you walk by your secretary and she's talking on the phone, she's talking to somebody that's personal, has nothing to do with the job, and it happens day and day, and you keep walking by. You know what you're supposed to do. But the manager worries, well, if that person leaves, I'll have to do their job. If that person will get mad at me. All these crazy ideas. And what they don't realize is they got to take the problem that person has and put it in perspective and say, if I can teach this person to do things right, they can get promoted, they can make more money, they can have a greater career, they can do more things.
So you've got to participate and be a part of the problem solution.
Oh, absolutely.
So delegation doesn't mean that, okay, you just run away and hide.
No.
And yet many managers, they'll do it. And they'll call it leadership. They'll say, well, okay, I'm delegating, don't they?
Well, so you've got to, and then you've got to teach these people when you delegate. Like, let's say we had 5 employees on a teller line, and we took one employee and made him the head teller.
Okay.
Now, their job is to bring these 4 people up. Okay. But what happens, these 4 people don't know it, but their job in their mind, and they don't know it, is to bring this person down. Is to be one of the group again.
Yeah.
And so the person that gets back into the group is not a leader. It's the one that makes these 4 people become the next head teller.
Isn't that cool?
And the next head teller, and then maybe the assistant manager, and then a manager.
Yeah.
It works just the opposite.
Absolutely the opposite, isn't it? And so kind of counterintuitive to what most people believe and most people have taught, because they don't get a chance to have these kinds of discussions where they understand exactly what's going on.
Oh, that's
in
right.
a business.
You see, it's a lack of people understanding.
Right.
And the more you can do with that, the better off you are.
Well, when you look for leaders, and if you don't mind, I'd like for you to kind of tell me, what do you think are maybe the top 2 or 3 things that if you were really focused on becoming the best leader you could be, and you would be the leader that others want to follow, tell me, what do you think those top 2 or 3 things would be?
Well, I can tell you exactly, and I base this on my military experience.
Okay.
The military had certain principles of war, and they were objective, offensive, simplicity, unity of command, mass, maneuver, economy of force, surprise, and security. And with that, you could win a war if you managed all through these things. But the first 2 were the most important, offensive and objective. Too many companies sit on the sidelines. They're defensive. They wait for customers to come in. They wait for things to happen. They wait till something goes wrong. They wait. It's like a car salesman. They wait for you to come in the door. You got to get out of the door. You got to get out. You got to make contact. You got to do all these kind of things. And then, as I talked about earlier, management by objectives. You got to know what you're supposed to accomplish. If a person knows what they're supposed to accomplish, then they know whether they're doing good or bad. And there's no sense doing something good if it shouldn't be done at all.
Exactly.
And so, but it makes decision making for a manager really easy. Somebody asks you a question, should we do it or not do it? Well, how does it fit into our objectives? Doesn't fit into objectives? The answer is no. If it fits into our objective, the answer is yes, and you go on your way. You don't sit there and stew, well, we do this, do that, et cetera, et cetera.
So that's really basic division.
Oh my gosh, it's offensive. Get out there and do the job. Get out there and find out what's going on. Get out there and help. Get out there and see what's going on.
People they just really hate it when there's indecisiveness, don't they?
The worst thing you can do, even if some people like that, is to give them a desk.
Yeah.
You give a head teller a desk. Well, I got a desk, maybe I have to sit there, Well, pretty soon they're not waiting on the customer anymore. They're not, standing next to the teller that needs help to help with the customer and say, if you would have done this different. So there's a lot of things that you learn from that aspect.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
those 2, without question, are really important.
Awesome. One of the things that I like to also talk about is that to me, every leader, doesn't matter what your title is. It's irrelevant what you're doing. But you're in the business of selling and solving problems. And I'd like your take on that. You know, what do you think about that?
Well, without question, when I was in high school, I was a DECA student, just of education, selling and retailing. And I've always grown up with a selling attitude. When I was at the gas station, selling attitude. Even though I washed cars, I had to sell gas. You know, that was great. So I knew I was working. Selling is a 100% job by everybody. If you walk into work and you have an outside and there's a beer bottle laying on the lawn, pick it up. Why? Because people will look when they're walking in the first time and see what kind of outside your place looks like. If there's beer bottles, cigarette butts, all those kind of things around, you know, take care of it.
Right.
Sell all the time. I remember we had an employee that took her accounts to another bank because they paid 1/4% more. And I explained to her, you know, that other company where you're dealing with, but you're giving your deposits and stuff, wants to put you out of your job. And you're going there for 1/4% more. You know what happened? She couldn't understand it.
Wow.
She got very mad at me because I even mentioned it to her. Well, I didn't care. It finally, after years, it finally dawned on her that she had to continue to sell and be part of that organization. I mean, we gave her stock. We did everything that we did for our employees. I mean, so everything that she was taking her business and took it to somebody else was trying to put her out of her stock value, you know, everything.
And you know, I see this everywhere. I get a chance to teach managers, and they're in class, and they'll tell me, well, Steve, I'm not in sales. I'm not in sales. I'm over here in programming, or I'm in operations. And I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody is in sales.
Absolutely.
And if you're in management, how can you get people to achieve objectives if you're not selling them?
Well, the thing also is that they have to understand that's a different part of sales.
Okay, talk about that.
You know, there's sales where you get out and you say, I want you to buy a new shirt from us, etc.
Right.
Or you want to go out and you're a person that tries to get money for a foundation. You know, you're asking people for money. That's one type. If you can get 5% of the people in the country to do that, you're lucky.
Right.
So most people are afraid of sales. So they have the wrong feeling about sales. Sales is, how does the place look? Sales are, how do you act in front of an individual that comes in? How do you talk about your company when you're home at night? Sales has everything to do with how you react to everything. Mm-hmm. It's not just selling an item and asking people to buy it. I mean, if you're in behind the scenes and you're an accountant, it's the neatness of the report, it's the accuracy of the report, it's the giving the proper report at the proper times. That's sales.
It's all part of it, isn't it?
Everything is sales.
Awesome.
And so be the best you can in all these kind of things. And when you do that, and then recognize these people for their sales, recognize them for their accuracy. Don't just give awards or rewards for people that actually sell some. Give people that have to take that sale that they made and turn it into a different type of sale.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm an accountant and I send a customer an ugly statement, that's sales.
Absolutely.
So it's all sales.
Absolutely.
And so
thank you for your take on that. I really wanted to hear your thoughts on it. So I want to ask you a different question, because I want to orient this one toward those that are they're just beginning in their career. And if you would, I'd like for you to kind of share, what would you tell them that they should focus on so that they could become the very best that they want to be and achieve the goals in their life? What would be your advice to them?
Well, my first advice was for them to not to worry about themselves at this point, and to learn as much as they could possibly learn. If you're accounting, ask to go into someplace where it's not accounting. If you want to go to school, you want to do things, you want to learn. Don't worry about how much you're being paid, even though that is important in your life. Worry about how you can learn more about the job and how you can get more authority and be more delegated to, and actually come out and tell people, I can do that job. Remember what I said right at the beginning?
Yep.
When the president said that the branch manager was leaving, and I said, I can do that job.
Right.
And volunteer. The other part is don't be afraid to work extra. I'm amazed at the people that work from 8 to 4 or whatever it is, you know. And then, boy, they're in there right at 8 o'clock, and they're ready to go at 3:45.
They're watching the clock all day.
You know, and what I've found out over 40-some years of managing, and that's just the banking part, the people that worked an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe a day, maybe 8 hours more a week, made 150% more than those people that just had their jobs.
Wow, I hope everybody heard that. Just a little bit of extra effort.
It's amazing how much per hour you make when you dedicate your life. I used to see people come in and they say, well, I'm working 2 jobs. Well, just think if you took one job and just enhanced that, and then your bosses saw that you were working, they were taking care, and who do you think they're going to pick to come the next step?
They're going to go to the one that is invested completely where they are.
Absolutely.
Without question.
So,
well, let me kind of wrap up a little bit
from
some of the things that we've done here today. We've covered a lot of great things. A lot of great topics. The only one I don't think we've really talked about is, and I'd like to kind of hear your take on this, personal productivity. You know, you've been involved in a lot of stuff. I mean, that's a lot of activity.
Yeah.
And people tell me all the time, well, you know, Steve, I do all those things, I just don't have time. And yet, high achievers do have time. They find time to do things. So what would be your secret to personal productivity?
Well, it's literally monitoring what you're doing.
What does that mean when you say you monitor what you're doing?
To look at what you're doing during the day and where can you do more. To give you an example, I remember we got a branch in Edgerton, Ohio, and there was a woman there. She was working 38 hours a week in a room just full of computer things. Mm-hmm. Well, when we monitored her job, it was a 15-minute a week job rather than 38 hours, 40 hours, okay? But what people do is they expand their time to meet the job.
Okay.
So they expand their time, and so it takes them longer to do certain things. And as I said earlier, there's no point doing anything well that shouldn't be doing at all. And we do that. And the other thing, by delegating, by learning from that,
right.
Don't be afraid to spend some extra time to do certain things like that, because it enhances dramatically. People said to me, Ed, why are you involved in so many things outside? I said, simple. Because those people, if they like me, if they trust me, if they feel I'm a good person, they're going to come to our place and do business. And you know what? I can't tell you the people that came through and said, it doesn't happen right away. But over a period of time, you planted the seed. Oh, a year or 2 years, someone say, hey, Ed, we talked a year or so ago.
Right.
And you mentioned such and such. I'm here to see if you can help me.
Absolutely.
So you have to, and the other thing is that as you grow in there's actually a box, if I can explain a box here, and then there's a line that goes up like in a diagonal here. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is operations and this is management. When you first enter your job, you do about 99% of your job is operations, okay?
Right.
As you move in management, okay, the amount of operations gets less.
Right.
And less and less, and you get more in management, okay? So what happens is that too many people want to hang on to their operation jobs, and they don't trust people to do it. And that's delegation, and that's caring, and that's all the kind of things about those people. They can do my job. There wasn't anybody that couldn't be a better president than I was, in my mind. So it's just a matter of doing things that I should be doing as president that may had meaning to the community and meaning to getting more and more business, and I gave up operations.
That is
But
awesome.
I knew what to do. I knew when they were wrong.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you knew it, but you didn't allow yourself to expand your time.
So as you go farther in management, it's less operations.
And spend that time
That's right.
wisely.
Yeah, but I've seen vice presidents doing 90% of their time in operations and 10% in management.
Right.
And they should be doing 90-10
should be the other way around.
Absolutely. That's key. That's key. The other thing is that everybody says, you're like a spear or an arrow that goes on this type of thing, and you're back here somewhere. As you bring more people into management, you shouldn't keep the spear. You should open it up so you become a roller coaster, and so all these people can be part of that. And when you do, you just roll over.
Awesome.
Hit a certain part.
Awesome.
Great analogy. Little different thought.
Great analogy.
Yeah, good.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Any time I can leave, Steve. I enjoyed it.
I want to just kind of end this and say, hey, is there anything else that you'd like to share maybe that I haven't asked you today as a final thought?
I think one of the things is a lot of people always, what am I most proud of?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
See, I've been retired almost 10 years. In fact, maybe 10 years. And I look back at the people. I don't remember a lot of the years, how much money we made, how fast we grew, all those kind of things that would be judged on.
Right.
But when I walk down the street and somebody that worked with me comes up and hugs me, I know I did well.
That's when you know, don't you?
And that's made my whole career worthwhile. It's when they walk down the street and they cross to the other side, which is never, I can't remember it happening to me. That's when you know you've really messed up. And no matter how profitable you were and how much, all these, supposedly important things. And then I look back, one time we had at count 17 of our former employees that were CEOs of their own companies.
What a great testimony.
Yeah, and people that have gone on to different things where they've gained the experience, they've gained the enthusiasm, they gained the knowledge, and it's made them different in the field. If somebody come to me and they said, well, they have to leave and they want to go someplace else where they can, I never tried to keep them per se. I said, make sure you're thinking the right thing. And if you're going, God bless you. Enjoy it.
Awesome.
That's more important, frankly, than this job. Is for you to continue to engage and try to get better for yourself and for your family.
Yeah,
that's what I really love. That's
awesome.
Why I'm so happy today.
That's awesome,
yeah.
And what a great way to finish, because we started with you talking about people and valuing people, and your final statements to me were about what those people meant to you through your career. Congratulations, Ed Reiter.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so very much for sharing today with our Manager Mojo group.
It's so easy.